How to understand the balance between sovereignty and free will. This is extremely important because these two camps in Christianity are at odds with each other. You got the extreme strict people over here that say free will is everything and you're just basically, you live or die by your own free will. And then you have the people over here who believe that God is completely sovereign and even gives people their own thoughts, and there's just not a thing they can do about it, even if they think they're having their own thoughts. So which is it? It's a balance of both, governed by love. Love finds the perfect balance between those two things and does that. God is love. He governs by the law of love. Okay? That's how he does that. And that law of love finds a perfect balance between lower laws. So, over here we have free will. Okay? Some people don't like the term free will because they get hung up on technicalities, and I understand what they mean. So we'll just call it a will, okay? Autonomous beings have a will of their own, okay? And yet, God is sovereign, okay? So how do you balance those two things? It's like this. As any good parent knows, God being the ultimate parent, you give autonomous beings enough freedom so that what? So that they can be responsible for themselves and enjoy their autonomy. Otherwise, why have autonomous beings? Otherwise, you just create beings who are not autonomous. Robots. And they do whatever you want them to do, and that's it. Okay? The people on the free will side, they'll say, well, you can't have love with beings like that. And they're right. Okay? You want beings with whom you can they will voluntarily be in love with you. This is true, right? We all want that with each other. We don't want people who are forced to be in love with us. We want people who choose us, right? Our spouses, our friends, they go, oh, you're cool. I choose to be in love with you. I choose to be your friend. Why? Because you're so cool. God's no different. He wants the same. Okay? So that's true. But the perfect parents, any parents, we don't give our kids enough freedom to destroy themselves. Okay? When you're a parent, you understand these things. It's like we give our kids enough freedom to enjoy autonomy and being free autonomous beings, but not enough freedom to destroy themselves. That's the perfect balance right there. Okay? And that balance changes a little bit with each person depending on their personalities, right? And I'll give you biblical examples in a minute. So it's basically the law of love. God governs all his lower laws by the law of love. Okay? So you have two laws. You have, or I guess, yeah, two laws. You have the law of autonomy and having a will. Okay? That's one of God's creations. And over here you have God's law of sovereignty. He's like, but I am sovereign. I can do whatever the heck I want with my creation. Okay? So in order to find the perfect balance between those two things, love, the highest law, the law of love, looks down upon those two things and finds the perfect balance of those two things in each and every person's life. This is why a lot of people, Christian people of faith, are very focused on the will and autonomy part of things. And a lot of Christian people, people of faith, are very focused on the sovereignty part of things. Why? Because that's what they've experienced under God's perfect law of love in their lives. He's like, this person needs more of my sovereignty. Okay? Because for whatever reasons, there's many reasons, God knows them all. He's like, this person needs to know my sovereignty. They might be insecure, so they need to know that I've got them. Or they might be too headstrong, and they need to know that, no, I'm really in control, right? Okay? Or the people who are more focused on free will, these might be the people who, they're very timid and shy, and so God has to go, hey, you can choose a little bit, right? Live a little, right? So they experience more of the free will, the will part, the autonomy part of things, right? Because God looks at each person and their personality, governing by love, perfect love, and says, this person needs more, a little license, a little will, a little free will. He needs that. He needs to grow in it, right? It's good for him. But this person needs to know my sovereignty. That's good for them, right? Because love, perfect love, gives, administers the laws of existence to each person as each person needs them, as is perfect for each person. And that's what God does. He governs all of his lower laws by the law of love. It's the tiebreaker. It's the ultimate determiner of how much of each lower law every person gets. Okay? So that's the balance. So there doesn't need to be a war. There doesn't need to be argument. It's balance. Balance is the key to so many things in life, okay? And how do you find that balance? You find that balance by love. This is what God does. God balances his lower laws, right? His lower principles by love. He says this principle needs a little more in this person's life because of love, and this person needs a little more of this principle in this person's life because that's what's best for them, because love always does what's best for you in all circumstances, considering all factors. So that's the balance. That's the key. There's no need to camp all the way over here on free will, or will, for those of you who don't like the term free will, and just say, well, you're all free to do what you want off into eternity, right? Because if you did that, we'd all just destroy ourselves, and God would say, success. I don't care that they all destroyed themselves. That's a success because freedom is my highest value. No, God doesn't do that. Neither does he come all the way over here and go complete sovereignty. You're all perfect robots doing everything I say all the time, period, through all eternity. Because what's the point of that? That's no fun. There's no enjoyment of existence in that, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess animals are kind of like that, but whatever, So, you get it? There doesn't need to be a war between the two because it's easily understandable. It's easily balanced, not easily. It's easy for God, but we need to come to understand. It's easy for God because he's perfect and he's infinite and he's eternal and he's love. So he finds the perfect balance between free will and sovereignty, and he administers that perfect balance perfectly in each of his children's lives as each one needs it. That is the solution, the answer to this ongoing debate. It's been going on for so long, eons, between will, free will, and sovereignty. They're not in opposition to each other. They're balanced by the law of love. Thank you and have a nice day.